2 minutes after 7 o'clock. Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning on Love FM Love TV. We changed gears a bit. We'll be talking with our friends from Galen University, and in the studios with me is Sherry Gibbs, the Dean, Faculty of Arts, Science and Technology at Galen. And joining us via Zoom is Dr. Kirsten Grenmink, I hope that's correct. And she's from Idaho State University, Assistant Professor, Department of Anthropology and Languages, but I understand you're in Cayo. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, I am in Cayo.
Do I have your name right? Kirsten
Greenmink. Yep, that is me.
Grenmink. Okay. Well, welcome. Let's start with you, Sherry. Let's just, brief us and remind us about the Faculty of Arts, Science and Technology at Galen.
Sure. Morning, Ernesto. Thanks so much for having us on again. So at Galen University, we have, under the Faculty of Arts, Science and Technology, we have our anthropology program. And within the anthropology program, students can concentrate in archaeology. Archaeology falls under the larger umbrella of anthropology. And so, what we're going to do the next 3 days is a bioarchaeology workshop, which really falls in nicely because right now we've got a field course happening. Dr. John Walden is working with our students on, Galen has some property that we're going to eventually build our new campus on, and we have identified some structures, some house mounds, and some shaltoons. So the students are out there for the first time excavating these structures.
So on campus itself, you may end up with some kind of structure. Then you won't be able to build.
Well, they're going to be in areas, so we're working around where they are, and so we're making sure that the design incorporates these structures so that we don't negatively impact them, but we're investigating them. We'll hopefully consolidate them. So any architecture that's remaining, you'd be able to see what they would have looked like.
I guess you're just discovering, so you don't have too much detail about what they are or what they look like or any idea what role they played.
Right, just in the second week, but they have found architecture, which is really great, and some artifacts that go along with them. So we'll find out at the end of the season what they're able to tell us. But this workshop really falls in nicely, sort of in the middle of the field school. So students who have been learning archaeological techniques, methods, will be able to learn a little bit more and then apply them to the activities that are planned for this workshop.
And I guess Dr. Mink will be handling that.
Correct. Yeah. Kirsten put together a proposal and was able to get some funding to do this. And so really, I want to throw it over to her because this was, her idea and her project.
Dr. Kirsten, what is, first, I have no idea what we're talking about here, so please, what's the workshop all about? What is bioarchaeology?
Yeah, so bioarchaeology is the focus within archaeology, using archaeological methods, but specifically for the biological aspect, which is humans, right? So bioarchaeologists specialize in the excavation and interpretation of human remains from archaeological sites. So the burials and the graves and all that come with it. And it is a very sort of specific skill set. And that's what we're going to be learning in this workshop is we are going to be teaching the students the specific methods and techniques of excavating burials, and then how we interpret the remains in order to tell the story of those individuals.
In Belize, is there somewhere that you'll actually do hands-on exercise, during the workshop, besides the theory?
Yeah, we are actually we buried some fake bodies at Galen. And so they are going to get some hands-on experience excavating the mock burials. So they're fake burials, but they get to practice the skills that they're going to learn in the lecture portion of the workshop.
what students should take this workshop? If I'm
I would
doing computer science, I can do the workshop. I mean,
Sure.
I can take
Absolutely. I
part.
mean, anybody can. Yeah, for sure. Anybody who is interested and whether they want to do it for a living or they just have an interest in it, can absolutely take the workshop. Yeah.
So we have some
you
of
said-
our own students, some Galen students have signed up, and then we also have some tour guides and community members who've
Right,
signed up.
right. So I think that's what you meant by doing it for a living.
Yeah.
Really with related careers.
Correct.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So our anthropology and archaeology students are really interested and keen on learning more. And then the tour guides, I think this is a fantastic opportunity for them as well to get exposed to this and
Oh,
to
yeah.
learn about, what's involved. So when they're taking their own guests and taking them to like Shinantanich or Caracol or even to some of the
They
caves.
can talk about it
Yeah.
with more interest.
Yeah.
Dr. Kristen, why? What would I learn? What would I find out if I do
Well-
this workshop? I mean,
Yeah,
you
so
know.
you're gonna learn about the skeleton. You're gonna learn about all the things we can tell from a skeleton, which we call a biological profile. So that is the age, sex, stature, the health, and the trauma that may have affected the skeleton. And so we can, like I said, put together sort of a story about this individual based on those things, those puzzle pieces, if you will. And then, which is sort of the lab portion, inside classroom portion of this workshop. And then the outside portion, which is the field work, we are going to teach them the excavation methods of burial excavation. So they are slightly different than your typical archaeological excavation because you're working in smaller areas, you're working with human remains, which are very fragile. And so a lot of the tools and techniques that we use in order to preserve the remains so that we can study them later are very unique to this field.
So
You're going to get all that.
this would be like a specialized area of archaeology.
Correct.
If someone
Yes.
discovers, a city, it's the bioarchaeologist that goes in there and studies the human remains. Let's put it that way.
And that's often what happens. So there's a number of excavations, a number of projects right now. And so Shinantanich, for example. And so when the archaeologists and the students that are excavating architecture encounter burials
grave or
or
something
human,
like that, yeah.
then they will call in a bioarchaeologist and someone like Kirsten.
Would it have to be human remains? What if they find like a dog or something like that?
Yeah,
That is of interest, is it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We refer to that as zooarchaeology, and so any faunal remains or animal remains, can tell us a great deal about people living.
Why would we do this? I mean, what would we find out?
So
Would we find, I don't know, how old was a person or how
Yeah.
they died or
you can find out
how,
what
how would that
Kirsten-
help, I don't know, history or Belize or me here, sitting here,
Yeah.
You find a body somewhere and how would that change my life?
Well, I'm not sure if it'll change your life, but it adds to the information that we know about the past and about the people specifically. So Kirsten had mentioned about the health of the individuals. We can look at a population and try to understand how healthy they were. We can understand by doing chemical analysis. We can identify what they were eating, so specifics
So you
about
know what
their
the diet
diet.
would be like?
You can, in some instances, extract DNA, so we can look at who's related to who. You can look at migration, and so we can tell where people came from. So then you're getting an idea of the movement of people. And really, I mean, no different from what's going on today. So there was just a constant movement of people around, and identifying where people were coming from, and the health, how people were. Even a little bit, occupations, how hard was their life? What were some of the maybe things that they were doing?
Yeah. Dr. Kristen is, well, I have here, she's from Idaho State University. Dr. Kirsten, why Belize? Why did you choose Belize?
I like to say that Belize chose me. I did my dissertation research down here many years ago at Cajalpech,
Oh,
and
okay.
yep, and I
Uh-huh.
started working with the BVAR project back in 2013, and I've just stuck around, and I love it down here, and I always really appreciate working with all the people that I've gotten to work with, and this opportunity I feel very passionate about because as a Native researcher, I think it is important for local communities, specifically those of Maya descent, to be able to work on their ancestors and on the sites that their ancestors lived on, and bring their very unique perspectives to that story that we get to tell about those people. So this was just it was a perfect opportunity. Everything fell into place at the right time. So
When we have this information about, well, our past, how could our administration or government use this information to influence our present?
No, that's a really great question. Maybe if we're looking at health of individuals, diets of individuals, and maybe looking at health patterns today, agricultural methods, sustainability, even construction methods. Yeah, I think there's a lot that
Could that influence how we talk about our history?
definitely, yeah.
You know, I'm thinking today with migration the way it is all over the world, nobody wants you in their country anymore. And we keep reminding, you know, we're all migrants.
Yep.
Would this be helpful?
I think so. We've always been moving around.
Yeah.
Always. I think that's just so much a part of our history that we've never stayed in one place. And then understanding why we move around. So we see war, conflict can move us, and we see that in the past here. Environmental impacts. And so, you know, when people talk about the collapse and was there a drought, so people moving because you're trying to find food and water, or you're moving because you're trying to find a safe place, or you're moving for opportunities, right? And this is no different from what's happening today to what was happening hundreds or thousands of years ago.
Yeah, at the end of the day, survival is the main,
But
main
one of the
attraction.
other, yeah. And one thing that I forgot to mention too when we were talking about who's going to be participating, Dr. Blanco, who's the forensic anthropologist for Belize, he's at the National Forensic Service, he'll be participating. And so looking at why people would want to learn this and learn these techniques, because the methodologies that are used for bioarchaeology, you can apply them. So you can be a forensic archaeologist or a forensic anthropologist. So you're the same sort of techniques that students will be learning can be applied to a forensic setting. So when Dr. Blanco encounters...
I'm glad you brought it up. I
skeletal
had
remains.
here to ask that question because we are trying to develop our forensic department.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask you if their technicians, this would be good for them, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And so we've
Absolutely.
encouraged them to apply. And I know Kirsten has done some training too for police in the States in this line of work. Yeah. So what you need to do when you find decomposing or skeletal material, skeletal remains that aren't an archaeological context, you would use the same sort of techniques to excavate and to remove them, and making sure that you're collecting all of the evidence there. And then it's the same, when Kirsten was mentioning about the biological profile, that's what you're going to do with the skeletal remains to understand the age of the individual when they died, their sex, their health, or any sort of trauma that would have happened to them, to help identify who that individual.
How old would the remains have to be of major interest? I mean, how far back do we have to go?
Like a major interest.
Well, in archaeology, I remember as a young man living on Bayman Avenue here in Belize City, I found a skull,
Oh, wow.
you know, and there because the city was developing. Then you find out there was a burial ground in that area.
Yeah, yeah.
And there were several burial grounds around Belize City. So
Yeah.
obviously there are remains living there, but they're, I don't know, maybe 100 years old.
Yeah.
Is that worth your while to dig up and find out, or that's too
No.
young?
I think it's worth your while for any remains are significant and important. So it could be doing human rights work. There are a
True,
number of like
true.
bioarchaeologists or
Yeah.
forensic archaeologists, anthropologists who do a lot of human rights work. Guatemala, I had an opportunity to work there on clandestine graves, and it happens all around the world again where there's conflict. So, I think it's an important job to do.
Well, I know, Sherry, that you've been involved with this in Belize for a long, long time, and a lot of questions are popping up here. And as we keep discovering what we are doing, are we taking all this information and putting it somewhere in our files and looking at our history? You know, we mention the Mayas, and whenever we mention the Mayas, and yourself and Dr. Kirsten would appreciate the Mayans coming from Guatemala and the ones down south but we had a lot of Maya influence from Mexico as well, where is my people come from. So when I say I have Maya blood in me, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not talking about being Maya like the ones down south of Guatemala, right?
Yeah.
And people remind me of that. Say, no, you're a different kind of Maya, you know. So how are we taking it seriously and looking at all this information we're gathering with people like yourselves, with all this forensic stuff going on and so on? And do you have any, through the university, I don't know, or the ministries or whatever, are putting this information and compiling it so we can identify who or what came here and when and what type of people they were?
Yeah, so that's a really great question, and Kirsten might be able to provide more information.
Because in other countries, I suspect they do that.
Yeah. So Dr. Walden has an ancient DNA project that he's been working on collecting samples from peoples in San Antonio. But being able to extract DNA from archaeological remains, you're not always going to get it, or you're not going to get enough to be able to draw connections. But there are really some fantastic stories of remains being found that can be really old, that you can relate back to people living today. And I think more and more people, like with being able to send your DNA away to Ancestry or some other companies so that you can find out your genetic ancestry. I think more people are getting interested in that to try to figure out where they came from. But then having those cultural ties too, right? So you're saying you may have some Maya in you, but you're not related to groups living today. Yeah, because they have a different lived experience
which are the ones
from you.
we look up to because of all the ruins and the structures and so on are related to that Maya. So my Maya didn't do anything much when they came to Belize.
Yeah, you're all up north.
Because I think we came a lot later. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the really interesting thing, is understanding how people were moving around, because at one point you would have had people from the Petén moving through Belize, through this area, going up into northern Belize and into Mexico.
That's right.
And then there was another movement of people coming back down. So there were people just always back and forth moving around.
Definitely a lot of mix going on there.
Yeah. But Kirsten might be able to answer.
With her experience,
I think you wanted to jump in,
not only in
Kirsten.
Belize, but otherwise, add to the conversation.
Yeah. I just want to add that at least I can speak for my project here, the BVAR project. We publish all of our site reports, every thesis and dissertation and honors project that comes through the BVAR project, or done under our permit. They are all open access and available for anyone on our website. And we are a very productive project, so there is a lot there. We have started doing more and more outreach as well with communities locally here. So educating children from grade school all the way through university, and teaching them about their history. I think even if you don't associate or claim Maya heritage, that doesn't make you any less Belizean, and it doesn't make you any less of a human who is participating in this world. And so, whether you are of Maya heritage or not, I think it's really interesting to learn about the history of the place that you live. I think it creates a connection to the space and to the people that you can take with you. And whether that changes policy or not, I mean, that's a little above our pay grade. But we're doing the best we can to at least get the information out there for anyone who is interested.
I know you said you'll be doing your digging in the area of the university. Is there anywhere else in the country that some of this digging will occur? I just read in the news that Belmopan has a new site. That's
exciting.
Should be exciting for people like you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, to go and see what's going on there and what we can find out. You know, apparently we had Mayans all over Belize.
Yeah, I think everyone.
Everywhere. They were everywhere.
You can't put a shovel in the ground. I always say this to students, that you're
And
always,
that
and I
is-
think everybody has got their own little collection in their homes of some.
I do, yeah.
Yep. Pottery
Couple of
sherds, maybe some
pottery
stone
many years ago
tools.
before it was illegal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, illegal. It's the Institute of Archaeology wants to be able to document it. So I think a lot of people think that if you tell anybody that you have some artifacts in your home, that they're just going to walk in and take them away. But what the Institute of Archaeology is trying to do is get people to inform them. They can go in and they can document and catalog. So it'll be on record that you
Like
have
a private collection type
right,
thing.
and that you're then responsible for it, and you'll get a certificate. But it's just so when researchers like an archaeologist who's working with BVAR, works with Kirsten, is interested in a particular type of artifact, they can go to the Institute of Archaeology and find out, I know Ernesto's got, some obsidian artifacts. I'm going to go and contact him and check out so I can do some research on what he has. So then you get to be part of, telling the story. You're responsible. You're the
I have
steward
a nice
of
collection
these.
of old bottles.
Yeah.
In the 40s or 50s,
But then people can help
I still
you
have
understand.
barnacles on a couple of them.
Yeah, then you can understand where they came from.
Yeah.
How they were made. And I would think that if you've got this collection, you've already got an interest there, and so you'd like to learn more about it. And so, And I also want to throw in, the Institute of Archaeology also has a symposium. They now do it every other year. So all of the information that happens, all of the excavations, all of the research that's done gets shared to the public. And I think that's one symposium that I've seen a lot of people will come out, and it's set up so, your tour guides, but just community members who are interested can go and show up and learn about what's happening in their country and ask questions.
Yeah, Dr. Kirsten, I know you're. How's the interest going? Are you getting a lot of interest? Because I understand you got some funding. You had to apply for some funding and all that. So
Yeah. So two of my colleagues and I and Sherry applied for some funding, and we were very lucky to receive that funding through the Winter Gren Foundation.
from where? From who? Which
From
one?
Benner Gren, it's a private foundation in the United States
Okay.
that supports
It's a good thing some money is still out there with all the shutdowns that occurred recently. Somebody's still
it's not,
helping.
It's not government money. so yeah, it's still around, but and they support all sorts of anthropological research, and so this workshop really fit very well into sort of their mission statement. And we got the funding last year and had planned to host this workshop this year. And we have a pretty good showing, I think. It's a variety of people, as Sherry said. We have students, we have professionals, we have community members, and a couple of tour guides. So we have a wide range of people who are interested. It is our first year, so hopefully if we continue to host this, that we will be able to drum up a little bit more interest in years to come. So
Are you still looking for? Can people still register? Interested? Is it open or is it closed now?
I think It was still open last week, but I think it may be full now.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Just-
think we're
yeah.
good for this time.
Yep.
You don't have-
But I'm hoping that, the folks who participate really love it and share it with other people. And so again, if we can host it again next year and continue on, that we'll get more and more people. Yeah.
Okay, sounds like fun. Well, if you find anything or anyone interesting, please tell us about it.
Yeah, we will. for sure.
Maybe you find enough DNA we can clone somebody. Well, that's a big thing now. I mean, what's your latest opinion on that? Cloning these animals, and we're finding DNA now,
Yeah.
and some scientists are actually thinking of
Yeah.
going human.
Yeah.
I
I
would say it's a really slippery slope.
Yep.
So
I joke with my students that'd be fun to have a mammoth back
Yeah.
or a giant sloth
they-
wandering around.
What
but-
they thinking about the saber-toothed tiger the other day? That they were cloning one of those?
Oh, it was a wolf.
A wolf, right?
it's
A wolf.
not-
Yes,
It's not really.
it's a wolf. Yeah.
It's not a true.
No, that's
and-
what I read.
yeah.
Yeah, because you have to use other DNA.
But then, there's so many, like Kirsten said, it's a slippery slope. There's so many things to take. So if you're going to, we already have issues with wolves, where wolves are, and, some places just exterminating wolves. So you're now going to introduce a huge predator. Where are you going to put it? And you're just going to raise them to put them in zoos. That's kind of, yeah.
I won't be around when AI takes over and all these clone animals will be roaming the earth.
They could clone you. You could come back and maybe,
There you are.
maybe, yeah.
I
Dr.
could say,
Greenway, the president
do they
would.
still save your head or something like that? What did they call when they freeze your head? And
Well, like cryogenics. I
they are
suppose-
cryogenics. That's right.
Yeah, you could donate your body to medicine and have them. Yeah,
They,
you
they
could
preserve
sign
my
off.
head in case they
Yeah. So it would just be a talking head sitting there.
I know it sounds funny, but a lot of people take it seriously.
Yes,
Hey, this
yeah.
is a science, and they feel that
Yep,
this
and
can
it is a
happen.
business. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a business. Well, all the best to you, Dr. Kristen. And
thank you.
don't just go digging in old graves. Find
Okay.
enjoy some of the newer things in Belize.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, ladies.
Thanks so much. Yeah.
All right.
It was good to talk about
Like I
this.
said, if you find anything that's well, I know in your profession everything is
Everything
interesting.
is. Yeah, we get
But,
excited
but
over
out
everything.
here we want the more sensational stuff, like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, maybe you'll find a giant Mayan or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Could
you'll be
happen.
the first one.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Dr.
All right.
Sherry Gibbs, of course, Dean Faculty of Arts and Science Technology at Galen, and visiting us, right? She doesn't live here.
No, she, Kirsten
Dr.
just came down a
Kirsten.
couple weeks ago, and she's, working with the archaeological project out of Cayo. Yeah.
Dr. Kirsten Grenmins from Idaho State University. Thank you, ladies, and making our morning a lot more interesting and give us things to
so.
think about.
Yeah.
We'll be shifting gears, folks. After this, our colleagues from the BCCI will come in with their edition of this morning's Business Perspective.
Good morning. A slightly moist easterly airflow will prevail. The forecast is for sunny skies with some cloudy spells today.